going with that.
We have a...
Is there something that you wanted to say? Okay.
No, we're moving on to our special guest.
Special guest! Guys, we're about to talk with David Sanhueza, who has worked on a lot of different things, but this is different for the show. He works on card/board games, and he does a lot of artwork for it, but he does more than that too, and that's what we're going to talk with him about. He's going to be pushing his big upcoming card game called Immortal. It's going to be early 2015, and I wanted to show off a little bit of artwork that you'll find from it. Goblins, Drool, Fairies, Rule was his last game, obviously a kid-friendly one, and something that I know a lot of people like, and I've even had some people in the chat room say, oh, Game-O-Gami. I know Game-O-Gami, so that's really cool. I'm glad you guys know who they are. So
And even more so, he's in the chat, too.
Oh!
So if you want to ask him questions, you could ask him in the chat. Hopefully he'll see it. I don't know whether or not he will. Well, we'll be taking care of questions. But after the interview, by all means, bombard him. I'm sure he will appreciate that.
But before I move on, Kristen, would you mind putting up his two banners?
Yeah,
so we have them up on screen for everybody?
I'm trying to load my app.
Oh, okay, you might have to shut it down fully and then reload it.
You even breakfast.
Okay, so a few more pictures here of I think this is Goblins, Drool, Fairy Rules, but of course Immortal is the big one, as I was saying. So let's talk with David about that real quick. I'm going to call him up right now. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to search him.
Bacon.
All right. Yeah, okay, yeah, like you said, he'll be busy talking to us on Skype, but afterwards, I guess, if you want to
Here we go.
Questions, if we miss anything, we do our best.
Let's see if this works out. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. Never know with these calls, but we'll try. All right, not going through to David yet. Come on. There we go. Hey, David, can you hear us?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hello.
Doing great. We hear you just fine, and we're now just waiting on some video if you can activate that.
Sure. What's your guys' policy on underwear?
We love it, as long as you're wearing it.
All right, let's do this then.
All right. That's awesome.
Hi.
We're off to a good start. I like this.
All right, cool. I'm glad to be here.
All right, welcome, David, to the Level Up Show. I was filling everybody in on what you do. We're talking about Immortal, obviously Goblins, Drool, Fairies, Rule. But before we get into like Immortal, which is the big thing that you're pushing, I kind of just want to know where it started, because you're doing card and board games. Did you play this as a child? Is that why you're into it?
Oh, absolutely. Card games, board games, playing games, in addition to tons of games. I've been a lifelong gamer, and I'm an adult now. In quotation marks, adult, and to play games in addition to develop them.
Very cool. Now, what were some of the ones that you did play as a child? The ones that influenced you greatly?
Oh, Legend of Zelda, like whole series, was a big one for me right from the first one. I played a lot of games like Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games as a kid.
Sure.
There was like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles role-playing game. In high school and then in college, I really got into Magic the Gathering, which I played a lot, which was, I think, a big influence on not just the type of games that I like to play, but also my design style, the kind of games that I like to develop.
Sure, yeah. I can see that, definitely. Did you ever play Magic, Mark? Was that one of yours?
Yes, I did dive into Magic for a little bit in high school.
I know around our group of friends, Magic was pretty big.
Huge, especially with all the Dans.
Definitely. Now, I assume that you've been an artist for most of your life. Is this something that you were in high school drawing and you're like, this is what I want to do? I want to make card games?
That is very true. Well, not specifically card games, but I have been a lifelong artist. So I mean, that's my two sort of big loves throughout my life have been artwork and expressing myself, my creativity, and in playing games. And I feel incredibly lucky to continue to do that, to actually have made a career out of that, and because it is my hobby in addition to what I do for a living.
Yeah.
So I was the kid, drawing on my notebook and all the time when I should have been paying attention to class. And I did end up going to college for that too.
Very cool.
I went to school at Northeastern University in Boston because I knew I wanted to make games. So I actually went to school for computer science at first, thinking that was going to be the route for me. But it turns out, that it wasn't quite what I expected it was going to be, and I continued on the side to continue to develop my artwork. So about halfway through college, I switched over so I could study animation and computer graphics, and that's what I stuck with, and that's what got me my in into the video game industry.
Very cool. Now, getting into the video game industry, did you find that difficult? Did you have to use connections? What is that like?
Well, it was difficult because starting out, I had zero connections. I mean, I had friends, and I had teachers who were helping me out. So, like in college, I spent years both in classes and then outside of class developing my demo reel through the stuff I learned at school, and a lot of time just browsing the internet, going to different 3D art forums. Getting really inspired, some really great, 2D and 3D artists out there, and trying to emulate what they were doing, and in order to build up a portfolio, which I felt was professional enough to try to get a job. And then once I thought I had something good enough, I sent probably about 500 emails to like 500 different game companies around the world, and that took probably about 9 months of like nonstop job searching after college before I actually landed my first full-time job as a 3D artist.
Very cool. Now, was Goblins, Drools, Fairy Rules, was that the first big project you worked on, or were there ones before that as well?
Goblins, Drools, Fairy Rules is actually just about the most recent project that I worked on. That is actually my own game that I published as a card game. I've been in the game industry for about 15 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I worked on a lot of computer games beforehand at different studios. Like Asheron's Call, which is one of the first MMORPGs.
Oh, really?
Really,
that's cool.
During that like first big generation of ones, like Ultima Online and EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot, and then Asheron's Call, which is the one I worked on. Those were like the first four really big ones way back in the day. And I worked on different like 3D RTS games after that. Working at studios in Boston. And in other places, and then finally I ended up here in Las Vegas, and I worked at Petroglyph, working on their games. And you've had quite a few guests from Petroglyph on this show.
Definitely, we love the guys from Petroglyph. They're also freaking kind. I mean, they keep coming on our shows. Yeah, they're great. Obviously, Mike Amerson is connected to us with so many different people. And once again, thank you, Mike Amerson, if you're in the room, because he's such a great guy, and Mike is in here, so that's awesome. Now, having that experience
Mike is an awesome guy. I definitely consider him one of my best friends. He's a really cool person. Really fun, creative guy. Great game developer, but also just as a person, like you say, he's this really nice, genuine guy. Same goes with Mike Legg and Thomas App and a couple of your other guests. Are all guys I know, and they're all kicking ass, doing their own. Can I say that on the show?
Yeah, you can. You can say
absolutely.
Yeah.
We say.
If I was typing it, I would just use like an @ symbol and like $2 signs.
Definitely. Now, speaking of that, now that you say like Mike Legg and Thomas Happ and stuff like that, you worked with these guys in the past. Do you keep in touch? Do you guys like bounce around ideas and stuff like that?
I do with some friends, especially Mike Amerson. Like he and I definitely get together every once in a while and hash out game ideas. I've helped him out a little bit on his game Darkbreakers. Stuff. So yeah, I definitely keep in touch with a lot of people I've worked with in the past, both from Petroglyph and other studios.
That's really cool.
And it would be a dream. Some of these guys who I've worked with before, it'd be a dream to get together with them and make another game together sometime.
That's cool. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you also take these games like Goblins, Drool, and Fairy Rules, and you also turn them into like iOS games and stuff like that?
Right. So, so just sort of catch up, I guess, with my sort of history in the game industry is that, so the last full-time gig I had was working at Petroglyph here in Las Vegas. And then at the beginning of 2012, I left that job so I could start my own company, which is Game-O-Gami.
Yes.
So I basically had all these games that I had been sort of developing as side projects for years and years, really since I was a kid. Really, I've been kind of just designing my own games and just playing with my friends and my cousins and stuff. But I finally decided, you know what, like it was time to go pro, to actually make these into real games, try to see if I could get them published or publish them myself.
Sure.
So I left my full-time job as a 3D artist at Petroglyph and founded Game-O-Gami to do exactly that, to develop and publish games that I designed myself.
That's amazing.
So Goblins, Drools, Fairies Rule was the first one of those. And the idea was to develop card games in board games, partly because I love those kind of games, right? Like I've played them my whole life in addition to playing video games, but also as an individual, they can be much faster and easier to develop than a lot of video games, at least depending on what kind of game you're making, right?
Sure.
Like you can make a Tetris clone really quick, but if you're trying to make a really, deeply involved, role-playing game or action game or something like that, that can take a ton of work and money to do. While a board game, you can have that designed in prototype. It might not look pretty, but you can have it really functional in a day and find out if it's fun before you even spend potentially years, working on it, trying to get it, finished.
That's very true. Now, let's get to Immortal a little bit, because that's the big up and coming. That's early 2015, I think, is what we're talking about for kickstarting, right?
Sure.
And let's say that right now, guys. Look forward to that. We're going to be talking about Immortal, but the Kickstarter coming early next year, so keep that in mind. Now, tell us a little bit about Immortal and just kind of the pitch, I guess you could say.
Right. So Immortal is a game of Mythic strategy. It's a board game that uses cards. It's much in the way like games like Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone, or if you remember Triple Triad.
Yes, definitely.
Which is a mini game in Final Fantasy.
Oh
so
my God, I love Triple Triad.
The inspiration for Immortal. Oh, then you're gonna love Immortal. Because it basically takes that mini game, right? Like the same, gameplay of capturing, people's cards. It was sort of like a very tactical tic-tac-toe, right?
Yeah.
But with Final Fantasy characters. So Immortal takes that concept and really ups the ante by adding a lot of special abilities, a la Magic the Gathering. So in addition to like the different attack strengths that the cards have to try to capture their opponents, they have abilities that can enhance other cards, move things around, and bend a lot of the other rules. So each card has its own unique power and flavor, and that's one of the, for me anyway, that's one of the most fun things about Immortal and what makes it really unique.
Sure. How many?
On top of that, it's played on a modular board, so you actually get to build the battlefield as you're playing with your opponents. So you can play it with one opponent or up to 4 players, and you all develop this modular battlefield together with these like Tetris type board pieces, and then you play the cards on them to try to conquer the different areas and be the player who comes out on top by capturing the most cards in the end.
So how did the gamers get a hold of the cards in this instance? Like, how many does the game potentially come with, and then what are the plans as far as distributing more cards as you create them?
Right. So the game, there's 2 big to the game. So the first is with an actual physical board game release, just like with Goblins Rule, Fairies Rule.
Yeah.
This will be a game that you can buy off of a shelf in a hobby store, and keep my fingers crossed sometime in the future at bigger stores like Barnes and Noble and,
Sure.
and Target and stuff like that have a big game section. But basically, it's going to be a physical product, which will come with a set of 4 different factions you can play with. So unlike games like Triple Triad or Magic the Gathering, where you have this large number of sort of random cards that you buy, you don't really know what you're getting. You're just getting a random set of cards. You got to buy a lot of them before you can really build a deck with any particular theme or any really solid functionality. Right? Those games can be, like Magic the Gathering in particular, can be a big money sink, right?
Yeah, definitely.
With this game, everything comes packaged into one box. Everything you need to play one of these 4 different factions, which are based on mythology. So we have like the Greek gods, like Zeus and Poseidon and Athena. We have the Norse gods like Thor and Odin and Loki. There's Japanese mythology and Native American mythology. So there's going to be 4 factions. You can choose one to play with, or you can mix and match them, but you're not going to have to be chasing around rare cards or not know what you're getting. Everybody who buys the game is going to get the same set of cards, so you have the same tool set to work with when they're trying to outwit and outplay their opponents.
That's awesome. That's great news. Now, this is a team working on the game at Game-O-Gami, and I'm kind of curious. Now, do you focus on the artistry, and who focuses on the mechanics and the strategy? How does it get divided up among the team?
As the creative director and founder, I'm basically driving this project. So I've done all the work, and I do handle a fair share of the artwork as well.
Very
I
cool.
do a lot of the graphic design and the art direction, but I've contracted some really talented concept artists to work on the illustrations for the game. I don't know if people can see them up on the screen, because I know you were showing some of the images earlier.
Yeah, and I will show some more too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the artwork in this game, because the guys I have working with me on this, they're talented. Like, you look at their portfolio, they just done awesome work on different games and their personal work, but they've really done a bang up job on this game in particular. Like, I just feed them some ideas and they really run with it, and they come back with something which I think just looks beautiful and I think is really going to stand out. Some of them are people that I've worked with in the past at Petroglyph, such as Kian Ang or Grant Grifford, and there are other people who are just sort of more famous, concept artists who have worked on different games and are really popular on sites like DeviantArt.
Okay.
Artists like Shata Tara and Monica Paolo. So we've got some really talented people working on the artwork, while I handle mostly the direction and the gameplay.
Very cool. Now, we were talking about Kickstarter a little bit earlier and how this is going to open up in early 2015. Now, is Kickstarter something that you have used before? And I kind of just wonder your feelings on it in general, because obviously it's really changed the gaming space, and it has allowed for many people that would never have had the chance to make a game before and get it out to a large audience to have that opportunity.
I love Kickstarter. It has definitely changed. It's changed everything when it comes to creators, right? When it comes to developing, whether it's a game or an invention, independent movies, some other kind of product, it's really changed the game for independent creators, to give them a place to basically try to advocate their ideas. Like, say, hey, this is something I think is awesome, back me up on it, and we can get it made together. And then having a platform where people can be like, okay, I'm going to throw some money at you, now go make it. It's a creator's dream come true, and I've definitely been trying to take full advantage of it because of that. Goblin's Jewel Fairies Rule happened because of Kickstarter.
Oh, that's awesome.
I put that up on Kickstarter and got the game published last year through the help of over 1,000 people who decided, hey, this is worth investing in. I want a copy. I want this to happen.
That's very cool.
So that they really helped us out, made it happen, and I plan to do the same thing, like you said, early next year. Put Immortal up on Kickstarter and see if there are enough people who will stand behind me and help make this game happen.
I hope that it does, man, and we're going to push that as hard as possible. And hopefully maybe closer to that time we can have you back on the show one more time to push it strongly.
Yeah, it would be great.
Yeah, I would love to. Like I said, it's early 2015, so I don't have the exact date marked down yet. But it most likely will be the end of January or sometime in early February when the project will launch. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to come back on again, talk more about it, and any other topics you or the viewers come up with. If people have something they'd like to know about independent game development, or board games, card games, or the fusion of that with video games, because that's the other thing Game-O-Gami is doing is, in addition to making these physical games, I'm also turning them into games for PC and tablets. So any kind of topics you want to talk with, I would love to contribute.
That's really cool. And that kind of brings up one last question that I had. It's kind of a little bit random,
sure.
But it's coming from somebody that is an old school gamer and has been around in this industry for such a long time. Is there any game series that, no matter how unrealistic, would be a dream of you to convert into a card game?
Oh, absolutely. Street Fighter series.
Street Fighter.
That's got to be probably my hands down my favorite game series of all time. That, along with Legend of Zelda and a couple others. But Street Fighter, that's probably still the game I play the most to this day, is Street Fighter 4. So I would love to get my hands on that IP and do something really awesome with it.
Well, that's something I would love to see, because I would love to see your guys' artwork on Street Fighter 4, or Street Fighter in general. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
All right.
Why not even just do a take on Street Fighter? That would be really
there
fun
you go.
to see.
You could tweak it a little bit, change the names,
Actually, one of the game concepts I'm working on is inspired by it. So it's not Street Fighter, but I love fighting games. Street Fighter, Soul Calibur, Virtua Fighter. So doing a card game based on that is something that I'm working on. But again, it's an original take on it. I think it's something that's going to going to be recognizable for, as being inspired by those kind of games, but it'll be its own thing.
Oh, there you go. That's another reason to have you back on.
Awesome, yeah.
Oh yeah, I would love to talk about it sometime. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm loving your show.
One last question, though.
Keep up the great work.
One last question.
Everybody really wants to know what your favorite breakfast food is.
I'm sorry, what? I couldn't hear.
Everybody wants to know what your favorite breakfast food is.
Oh,
I'm not sure if you had seen the chat earlier.
I keep coming. I'm trying to think of something creative, but bacon. Like my brain keeps screaming bacon, so it's gotta be.
I'm sorry for the random question, but that's been a topic of the chat room the entire night. Everybody's talking about breakfast food.
Well, yeah, I think someone was saying they could do breakfast all day, every day, and I'm down with that. I can totally do that.
Oh, that's a lot.
All right. Well,
go.
Thank you so much, David. You're a really cool guy. We love chatting with you, and we're going to push as hard as possible Immortal moving into next year. We will constantly reference your Kickstarter, and when it comes time, we'll love to have you back on. And maybe if this fighting game card game comes to fruition at some point, that would be another good reason to have you on.
Awesome. I look forward to it. I look forward to you guys kicking ass. Sometime in the future when the game is available to play online. I'm looking forward to getting my butt kicked. The triad player. So.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much again, David. Take care.
You too.
Oh,
Bye.
one last thing. Could you give us a loud no? Oh no, we lost him. I was gonna say give him a loud level up shout at the end there.
Oh.
It's okay. I'll do it next time with the next caller. I'm gonna start doing that. I want to get people to start shouting level up at the end.
Okay. Woo! That was great.
That was great.
I posted some of his stuff. Thanks so much again, David. That was a great talk.